Again, good morning and welcome. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Lori Ben, who is a regional manager with NC State's IES, for some remarks and introduction of today's speaker. Lori?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Lori Ben, and I'll be your host. Thank you for joining us today. Today's NC State Industry Extension Services, IES, webinar on succession planning presented by Dr. Jennifer Fielder. Next slide, please. Before we begin today's topic, I'd like to take a moment to introduce NC State University Industry Extension Services, commonly referred to as IES. For more than 70 years, IES has partnered with North Carolina businesses to help improve their performance, increase competitiveness, and prepare for future growth. As a part of NC State University, we connect industry with the latest research, expertise, and practical solutions that deliver measurable results. Our work is supported through a unique public-private partnership combining our state and federal funding with a fee-based services. This model allows us to provide affordable, high-impact assistance to organizations across the state. While we're best known for supporting small and medium-sized manufacturers, we also work with educators, institutions, healthcare and pharmaceutical companies, defense contractors, aerospace and energy organizations, and government agencies. Whether you're looking to develop your workforce, improve operations, adopt new technologies, or build stronger leaders, NC State Extension Services has the expertise to help you with your goals. Next slide, please. One of the greatest strengths of NC State Industry Extension Services is the breadth of expertise we bring to organizations across North Carolina. Our specialists work alongside businesses to solve real-world challenges and identify opportunities for growth. Whether you're implementing advanced manufacturing technologies, improving processes, strengthening cybersecurity, or developing your workforce, we have experts who can help. We also provide support in areas such as leadership, development, quality management systems, supply chain optimization, business growth and marketing, environmental solutions, workforce safety, and grant assistance. Our goal is to provide practical, customized solutions that can help organizations become more competitive, more efficient, and better prepared for the future. If today's webinar sparks ideas or raises questions about challenges within your organization, we encourage you to reach out. We'll be happy to discuss how NC State Industry Extension Services can support your business. Your NC State Regional Manager's contact information will be shared at the end of the presentation. We'll also email a copy of today's presentation to all attendees. Today, Jennifer will share practical strategies for identifying critical roles, preserving institutional knowledge, and creating succession planning that supports your organization's long-term growth and resilience. It is my pleasure to introduce today's presenter, Dr. Jennifer Fielder, Regional Manager for the Charlotte Proper Region with NC State IES. Jennifer is an industrial and organizational psychologist who specializes in succession planning, leadership development, and employee retention. She works with organizations across North Carolina to help them prepare for long-term success by developing future leaders, retaining critical knowledge, and building strong talent pipelines. Before joining NC State IES, Jennifer led statewide workforce and economic development initiatives with the North Carolina Community College System, helping employers strengthen their workforce strategies and apprenticeship programs. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jennifer Fielder. Jennifer, thank you for being here. We're looking forward to your presentation.
Hi, thank you, Lori. Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm very excited to talk about succession planning today. There is lots of buzz about succession planning. What is it? Why is it important? How do I start doing it? And we hear this all across the state, right? So my friends at NC State, everyone is hearing this in every single region. We feel like we need a plan, we need a strategy, and we need to get started. So if that's you, please know you're not alone and you're in the right place. And today I hope to, as Lori mentioned, really give you guys an overview. Succession planning is a big, big topic, but I'd like to give everyone an overview today and really some actionable steps that you can take away in order to start something right now. So get the momentum going with your succession planning. And this is a topic to me that I'm very passionate about because it's sort of at the intersection of strategic planning and talent development. So it's, two very important buckets, critical to each organization's success. So I hope that you find this helpful, and I'm happy to take questions at the end. So first, what is succession planning? Of course, it is a strategic process. It's going to identify critical roles within your organization and prepare qualified, keyword qualified, employees to assume those positions when vacancies occur. So the goal is to not be reactive, it's to be proactive. And that's why we're going to plan. We're going to try and create a pipeline of talent to ensure that leadership continuity and continue your organizational success. So essentially continue your business operations as normal. So why it's important, you guys can probably already guess. Again, keeping your business running, the continuity there. You're going to be building a strong talent pipeline. You're going to be driving long-term success. And another reason that a lot of people don't think about is it actually does increase employee engagement and retention, because you're showing a clear commitment to your employees, especially your high performers, your high potential employees, and you are showing them that you're committed to them and their success and their role within your organization. So a little exercise I like to do to get started. I want you to kind of take just a moment, think about the top 2 to 3 people on your team. So really visualize their name, think about their face, think about everything they do. So everything that's listed in their job description, plus everything you ask them to do every single day that's not listed on paper, and how they keep your business running. So these are the people that you absolutely cannot function without. Now imagine that they're all gone. So in that scenario, if you're feeling tension, that means it's a really good time to get started planning. I don't know if you guys have heard 20% of people within an organization tend to do 80% of the work. Now, that's not, of course, across the board, but we do know that there are critical roles that if left unfilled, and critical people within your organization, if they left, that it would be very, very hard to continue moving without a plan in place. So just a few questions to think about before you start your succession planning process, right? So succession planning is about roles. So which roles right now pose the greatest threat of becoming vacant? Do you have successors ready? So those are people ready to step in today. Do you have those people identified and trained to step into a potential role today, a critical role or a leadership role? Should it become open? Could we maintain business continuity after an unexpected departure of one of those roles? And are we as an organization intentionally developing internal talent while also leveraging external hiring when needed? So are you preparing for those, think critical roles and an unexpected departure, a big retirement. Let's say the CEO retires. Maybe you're experiencing rapid growth. So lots of things could be happening. You could be doing a ton of hiring. So you sort of need to prep on both sides of the scale, right? For hiring as well as for moving, filling and moving that internal pipeline. So number 1, it's determining your current state. And number 2, it's asking yourself and your leadership team, do you have the talent on the bench to fill those open positions? So there's kind of 2 buckets here with one goal, which is filling those critical positions once they become vacant. And they work together in tandem. So succession planning, again, is about filling the roles, filling the jobs. And this focuses on the business continuity. So it's those critical positions and successors for said roles. So it answers the question, who is ready or who would be ready to step into this position? And high potential management is about taking those people who you've identified, who you would like to become successors. So you would like to step in and fill those high profile critical roles. So high potential management is how you sort of manage those employees, right? It's focusing on their employee growth and leadership potential and developing them into future leaders. So succession planning is asking, who's ready to step into the position, and high potential management is essentially asking, how do we develop the people for those positions? So in order to start succession planning, I would recommend a 5-step process. It's a pretty simple process, but it does take time and some investment on behalf of your organization. So number one, you're going to want to identify the critical roles in your internal pipeline. Again, those that, are crucial to operations or pending retirements, or if you're expanding or growing, you would want to consider that as well. Number two, an assessment. You're going to evaluate especially your top performers and your high potential candidates, which I will show you how to do that in just a moment. Ideally, you want to, assess everyone in your organization with this method, but this is specific to those people who you have identified as potential successors. So the third step is you want to review those assessments and kind of calibrate those results. Number four is that you're going to go through a development planning process. So you're going to create individual development plans for each one of those folks. And that is sort of a roadmap or a pathway for each person. So you're essentially saying, here's the role. Here's the person that we have identified for this role, and here's how they're going to get there, if not ready today. And number five, you want to track and measure those results. You want to set some metrics in place to see if your plans are working. So step one, you want to identify those critical roles. And you can do this, you can sit down with your leadership team and do this. A KPI you can think of is sort of this equation. You take roles without a named successor, divide that by the total number of critical roles times 100, and that will give you the percentage of roles that you currently have at risk. So you can take this as a standing metric, and you can do this ongoing over time and sort of monitor it. And at the end of the process, you can see, are you developing those talent pipelines? Is that number changing? So sit down, however you want to do it, however you want to identify it, look at those critical roles. So this is everybody's favorite. This is the assessment portion. And it's where a lot of people tend to get stuck. So I would encourage you not to do that. This is called the 9-box grade method. This is something that is commonly used in succession planning. I think it's helpful for assessment in general, but it's a popular method to use for succession planning in particular. And you can see that it's very detailed, it's very nuanced. So what you're essentially trying to do here is look at potential and performance and where those two may meet in terms of any given employee. So you're going to think of an employee and you're going to assess them using this chart. Now, in a perfect world, everyone would be box one, outstanding performance and high potential. So box one is really what you're looking for. This is someone that consistently performs well in a variety of areas. Just your superstar employee, consistent big picture thinker, problem solver, self-motivated. It's everything you could ask for. On the flip side of that, box 9 is going to be your low potential employees and underperforming employees. So this is a candidate that might be qualified to be reassigned or even removed. You might think about putting this person on a performance plan, which is different conversation, altogether. But you're essentially trying to find out, for those people that you have in mind, and again, you can do this with your entire team, but for those people that you're really hoping to, develop their performance, you especially want to pay attention to this assessment and find out where they stand. And then you're going to use this information in order to develop them for identified critical role. So I like this view a little bit better just because it kind of strips out the words. It's a little bit more visual, and you can kind of see how the vertical and the horizontal come together. So again, high potential, outstanding performance, that's a future leader. Low potential, underperformance, that's a reassignment candidate. And then you've got everything in between. High potential, underperformance, that might be a diamond in the rough. You've got medium potential and effective performance. That's sort of a core player. They're just kind of doing what they need to do. So you're essentially going to be receiving scores for each one of your employees on this particular grid. And again, you can use any method of assessment that you would like for assessing your employees. It does not need to be the 9-box grid method. It's just one that's fairly popular with succession planning in particular. All right, so 2 common traps that I want to caution you guys about. The first I mentioned, which is actually number 2 on this slide, but please don't get stuck. So I see so many companies getting to the point where they do their assessments, maybe an annual assessment of their employee pool, and they've got their high performers, they've got their folks identified for succession, and then they don't move to the next step. And so the next step is where, the work is done of prepping these people, prepping your talent pipeline, getting them ready to go for those future and critical roles. So please don't stop at the 9-box method. Once you have their assessments, I want you to try and use those to develop your employees. That's the most important part, right? So don't get stuck at this step. And the second thing is, to remember when you're assessing your employees, we see this a lot, is people tend to value, so leaders and supervisors tend to value skill over competency. And that you can run into some trouble there because you may have a great skilled line worker, let's say, amazing at their job, but is not a well-rounded fit for a leadership role. And we see this every day. The regional managers all across the state, we get requests, hey, here's what happened. We promoted someone who was really great at their job into a leadership or management position, and they're just not doing well. And there could be a couple of different reasons for that. But one might be that people are looking too heavily at skill and not thinking about overall competency. So someone might be great at their job, but it doesn't mean that they have the competency or ability to step into a more holistic position. So you sort of want to look at the person holistically, not just their job skills, the hands-on job skills that they have, but you want to look at them as a holistic person, overall competency in order to step into a new role. So the third thing that you're going to want to do is review your assessment results, and you're going to want to calibrate this and talk about it amongst your leadership team. So leadership's going to review these 9-box assessments, and you're going to think about who is ready now, who's ready in 1 to 2 years, or who's ready in 3 to 5 years. So you have those critical roles and those roles that might be vacant coming up soon. Hopefully you have some ready now candidates. If that's the case, ready to go, step into those identified roles today, or at least very soon. 1 to 2 years, you'll probably have plenty of candidates who need focused development before they're ready to move forward. And then, of course, 3 to 5 years, that's your longer runway. This is candidates who have strong potential. They just need some work, some development, and some training. And again, this is great practice for ongoing performance conversations, really with everyone. But when you're talking about succession planning, you want to focus on those folks that you've identified for those critical roles. So what do you want to do with all of this information? And again, this is sort of where the work comes in, right? So ideally, you'd like to develop an IDP, an individual development plan for each employee, especially those who are going to be successors or high potential candidates. So An IDP is essentially a roadmap or a pathway for each employee within your organization. You take the information that you know about them, you ask them, where they fell on the grid, you ask them their career goals within the company, their strengths, talk about uh, areas of challenge or action areas, and think about, are they ready now or a little bit in the future? So a longer runway. And then how are you going to prepare them for a future role? Is it going to be leadership training? Are they going to do mentoring, formal education, whatever that looks like within your company? Some sort of development process for each of your employees. So they have an identified direction and they have an identified pathway of how they're going to get there. So again, you should also do this exercise with individuals who are not necessarily successors for leadership roles or those really high performing candidates. But please, I encourage you, do this with everyone. This is only going to lead to good things. Employees really feel valued when they know where they stand, when you ask them what their goals are within the organization, when you create a pathway for them, how they can grow, how they can contribute, how they can get better. So everyone really appreciates this. And, again, this could lead to performance conversations, could mean you end up doing some external hiring, but it'll give you a really good sense of where you stand with your talent bench. And a helpful model is the 70-20-10 model. Again, this is not overarching. It does not apply to every business. You can customize this or use as sort of use as you will. But in theory, 70% of development training can be offered or should be offered on the job. So those on the job skills, shadowing, learning the role of that, critical person before they leave. 20% learning through others. That's something like mentoring. And then 10% is, formal training. I don't know. I kind of feel like that should be a little higher, just sharing with you guys, the sort of common theory, but I'm a fan of probably more formal training. Formal training being things like, again, leadership training, a very obvious choice. So those skills are, very critical, and that can definitely come in handy. So formal training can mean something different for every organization. And the last thing that you're going to want to do is review, measure, and adjust. So this is tracking the progress of your identified people. So you're going to review their critical roles and the successors. Have you built that talent bench? Some helpful metrics when you're measuring might be to take a look at that formula I shared earlier in the PowerPoint and see if your risk is lowered. See if you've got the talent bench now for more of those leadership and critical roles. Were you able to fill them internally? And how are people doing on their IDP? How is that going? Are your high potential candidates being retained? So again, whatever sort of tracking system that your organization uses, or however you want to assess or measure this, this is a good time to do this, to see how these plans are working, to see if you're making progress towards getting this strategic plan in place of filling these positions. And again, if you need to update and adjust as your business needs evolve or things shift, feel free to do that. And one of the last things I wanted to touch on is preparing for a successful transition. So, let's say you have an upcoming retirement and you know about it well in advance. So that's absolutely part of succession planning. It's not just identifying who is going to take that role. It's not just about getting them ready to step into that position and backfilling their position. It's about preserving institutional knowledge and making sure you have a smooth transition. So the institutional knowledge is key. You definitely don't want to be stuck losing knowledge, skills, and abilities of people who've been with your organization for like 20 years. And we all have those people. And you also don't want to have to take a long pause in business operations and, have to train someone who you as the leader, do not necessarily know the ins and outs of that daily job. It would be helpful to have the person who was previously in that role to be able to, number one, preserve all that knowledge, and number two, do a transfer of responsibility. So you can think of it sort of as a phased retirement. That's what, I've seen companies sort of try to work out with their new and outgoing individuals. You're going to document those key processes. You want to capture all that expertise, mentoring, coaching, job shadowing, all of that training we talked about, and you're going to record, and document. So transition, you're going to want a timeline that's agreed upon by all parties, and you're going to sort of phase this transition period, gradually transfer those responsibilities. And, many companies will allow an overlap. So I've seen, the outgoing employee working full time, and the incoming employee is there training under them. And then eventually the outgoing employee might go part-time, but maybe you're still paying them for full time. So they're phasing out, but they're still training. This new person's phasing in. So whatever really works for your organization, it's nice to have a plan in place that's agreed to by both parties. And then, of course, you're going to want to confirm that the successor is prepared and ready to go before the transition is complete. And that is hopefully such a smooth process. Now, just so that everyone's clear, leaders and managers do own succession planning. A lot of times I see folks trying to put this off on HR. HR sort of hosts and guides the process, but leaders and managers really own this for their teams, their positions, and their people. And the last thing I'll leave you with today, and hopefully you can walk away with some of these tools and, just go back to work, sit down with your teams and start to really path this out. But this is something you can do, just to think about areas where you might need to focus. So, make a chart similar to this one. You can talk about upcoming organizational changes. So the example I have here, there's a critical production leadership role that could become vacant unexpectedly. So we don't know that it is, we have no idea, but it's important and a good idea, obviously, to plan for that to happen. Worst case scenario, plan for that to happen. So your current capabilities, that you've got several supervisors demonstrating strong performance. You don't know about their leadership capability. And then I want you to think about your organization's ability to address this change. So this means, the skills that you guys have, your strengths, your resources, what you can throw at this in order to meet this challenge or change. And then I want you to create some action steps. So again, you're going to want to do the assessment, identify the successor pool. You've got to develop those IDPs, and you want to review. And who owns this? Leadership team and HR. So this is something good to do, whether it's succession planning related or not. It's just a good way to kind of keep track of upcoming changes in your organization in terms of talent or, restructuring, growth, hiring, any real change. Quite frankly, you can use a chart like this just to get started. I find if you put pen to paper, it's sometimes a good way to get the momentum going. And so that's everything I wanted to share today. Succession planning is a big topic. I know it's overwhelming for a lot of people, and folks, are busy with their day-to-day. They do not have time. In many situations, they do not have time to really go through this process, A to Z. But it is important. It is something I would like for you to start thinking about. Just even one critical role one conversation is a great place to start. And if you need assistance, I guess the last thing I will add here, if you need further assistance with something like this or any, kind of related organizational development topic, please reach out to your regional manager. This is a map showing everyone who covers our state and their regions and locations and contact information. So if you have any questions following this webinar about how you can get in touch, feel free to contact me. I'm happy to help. Feel free to reach out to your regional manager and we can get you resources to get you on your way. And with that, I will turn it back over to Susan for questions.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording.